Hello, welcome to my podcast. Well, it's actually our podcast, isn't it? Because we're all doing the same thing. Addiction. I want to talk about addiction, not big addiction, not small addiction, just general addiction. I think people who come out of abuse land up having addictions of some kind. It's not your fault. It's the pain coming up. It's the memories coming up. And the only thing you can do is self-soothe. So to help with the pain, you put your spiritual band-aid on. That's what I like to call it. And you become addicted to things. You can become addicted and have an eating disorder. You can have a drinking disorder, drugs. You can have an addiction with gambling, shopping. There's all sorts of addictions. So you might have one, or you may have several. The worse the abuse, the worse the possibility of having an addiction. And really, it's just like to cover your pain. And once you start realizing that these things are only covering the pain, that underneath is the pain, then you deal with the pain and the hurt and the anger. There's a lot of anger under there with abuse. You'll always find that you'll have times when your head's telling you you've got to stop doing it, but the rest is like, I don't think I can. And the more work you do on your abuse, the less addicted I think you'll be, because you won't need that stuff to push it down. Usually what's happening is it starts coming up. Often people, if they've had childhood abuse, it'll start when they're 13, 14, 15, the addiction, and it'll be in various ways, and then it will just blow out into their adulthood because they haven't dealt with their abuse or the pain and the suffering there and the trauma. It's a sort of a form of PTSD, really, that you need to use these things, the addictions, to help quell it. What you're really trying to do is to anesthetize the pain. So the pain comes up and you drink or you smoke or you take drugs or you eat too much food or you throw up your food if you're bulimic. You do these things and it's your way of trying to cover it up. The more you work on yourself, the less addicted you will be. It'll take a while because an addiction is also a physical thing that your body gets used to it. Therefore, if you stop drinking or smoking or taking some drugs particularly, your body will react and you might have to go through that to get out of it. However, to get really clean, I think you have to deal with your emotional rubbish and your mental trauma, because that's where it's coming from. People are very judgmental to others who are addicted, like they're losers and weak and, why don't you just stop it? Because they don't understand where it's coming from. It's coming from pain. That's where it's coming from. It's coming from anger. That's the emotions that I think and hurt that you will need to look at. They're your strongest ones. You'll probably know by the way you respond in life which one's your biggest one. If you tend to get hurt all the time and cry a lot, I would say that's the hurt and emotional pain. If you're always angry, like an angry ant, that's where you want to go for your anger and your hate and your rage, because they're actually triggering your addiction. Get help if you are getting more and more addicted. You'll find that your habit, whatever it is, will be worse when you're going through a lot of stress. Have a look at the stress and see if you can minimize that to some degree. If you need to take time off work or not do the family for a while, if you've got extended family who are difficult, do that. If you need to run more, start using all those modalities like physical therapy, like running, massage, exercise, those sort of things that will help you. And you need to maybe go and talk to someone about it. That can help you a lot, because behind addiction is a big story usually, and it's often a very sad story and not a very nice story. I want you to stop self-loathing, stop criticizing yourself, stop hating yourself because you can't stop. You need to be loving to yourself, nurture yourself, be kind to yourself, because that's the one thing you didn't get. And you need to love yourself and do loving things for yourself. And when you fall over and mess up, you just go, okay, what did I learn from that? I learned that maybe I need to bring my stress down a little bit more if I'm going to start trying to get rid of the addiction, or I might need more help. Well, that wasn't the right time. My mum was dying. It's not a good time to go on my eating addiction and try and get rid of that. Just wait until she passes and then get some help. The timing is really important sometimes. You won't be successful because of the timing. and what's happening around in your life. I hope as you start to clear all the emotions and the memories and the trauma that you've had from these abusive situations that you've been in, that your addiction is needed less. It's kind of like, when you got no headache, you don't need to take Panadol, but when you have a headache, you need to take the Panadol. Well, this is like when you have no pain and no suffering and no hurt, then you don't need to have the addiction. That's what I see it like. One follows the other. Try to be also kind to other people who are addicted. And I think once you start to cotton on to why it is and where it is, you'll see the sadness in their eyes. You'll see the suffering, I suppose I'd call it. And you'll be less likely to be judgmental, because even though we might be addicted to things, we can still be judgmental in a weird way to people who are addicted to other things. Maybe we've got an eating disorder, but we're really judgmental to someone who's on drugs, for example. These are all pain relief. This is what it's for, emotional, mental pain relief. That's why people are taking them. Because if you are happy and your life is good, you might have some of these things sometimes, but you don't have the addiction to them. That's the difference. You have them because you want to have it. So you have a few drinks or you have a few smokes if you want. However, you're not addicted to that because you can actually go without it. Addiction's different. Addiction is you're almost magnetized to it. It also becomes your go-to place. When it gets really hard, you go straight there. Instead of going to counselling, instead of doing a meditation, tapping, you'll go there. And that's why I'm encouraging you not to go there. Go to something else and see if you can negate it to some degree. Then you won't need your addiction. It's hard. It's hard on top of the abuse because you've got all the abuse to deal with and now you have the addiction. However, they are interlinked. And once you deal with one, the other one can lessen. You kind of can do it at the same time. You can go do both things. I would suggest that you work on this, that you don't give up, because your health will like it and your body will like it more, because a lot of addictions actually aren't good for us. And the other addictions, which are gambling and porn and things like that, they'll end up messing up some of our social relationships and personal relationships as well, and also career choices. It's good to deal with it as best you can. I think that our society has got a really warped idea of addiction, and it's very punishing. And they don't realise that the person who's addicted was punished. That's the thing. You were punished. And that's why you're just trying to soothe your pain. Good luck. I hope you can take this in. I've done some other podcasts on addiction on my other channel called Real Relationships. So you might be able to find that one, or if you want to send me a message, I'll send you a link. However, I just kind of feel it's the most important thing is you see the correlation and you work at getting rid of the abuse damage, and that will actually help you with the addiction. Okay, sending you lots of love and light.